He's finally made it back from the land of Israel, where he spent several months filled with joy, it sounds like, but we so appreciate him doing this class. I think we're continuing more today with the book of Nehemiah. So let's just jump right in. Rabbi Ingber, we're going to turn the class over to you, sir. Oh, you're muted.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, Rabbi. You're live.
All right, good. I'm not on my regular computer. I'm on my phone, but hopefully the sound's okay.
Sounds and looks clear.
Okay, I can't see people. Let me see how I can do that. Oh, now I see people. Okay, great, good. I like seeing faces. Much easier than talking to yourself, you know. So okay, 1 second. Yeah, great. All right, hi everybody. How are you all doing?
We're good.
All right, great. So we're going to continue the book of Nehemiah, or as I got to get you saying in English, I say Nehemiah. Is that how we say it in English?
That's how yeah.
Okay.
With my Canadian accent.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's good. It's like I have different kids with one of my kids' name is Yecheskel. So I guess that's Ezekiel. I got a lot of ch sounds in my kids' names. I bracha, Yecheskel. It's like a little bit hard sometimes for people to say that. That chet sound in Hebrew is not commonly done. So Nehemiah, I guess, is easier to say than Nehemiah. So anyway, all right, we are in the middle of the second chapter in Nehemiah, and it's interesting because we are actually, I was in Israel, and sometimes the Torah portion reading is not exactly the same because there was a 2-day holiday in America, only 1 day in Israel. A lot of reasons for that. We'll explain maybe some other time, but the holiness of Israel, you can do it in 1 day. In America, outside of Israel, some holidays require 2 days. Long discussion, but be that as it may. So in Israel, they were a week ahead in the Torah portion. So last week we read in Israel the Parsha of Korach, which I talked about last week. And in America, they read it this week. So like I got a double portion. So my head's really in also in Parshas Korach. So I'll discuss that a little bit in the context of what we're up in Nehemiah, because the things all interconnect. So let's start and we'll jump in. So we're in the second chapter of Nehemiah, and what happened was we saw that Nehemiah went and he got permission from the king to go build the walls of Jerusalem. Now, in the second chapter, he goes towards the Jerusalem, and he's there 3 days. Now, he doesn't tell people what he's there for. He gets up at night, and he doesn't tell anyone what he's doing. And he goes around the walls of the city to check it out. Is it strong? He bangs on places that are falling apart to see if they'll break or if they're sturdy or not. After he does this, after he checks out throughout in a hidden part of himself, no one knows why he's there. He gathers the people together, and then he says to them that we're in trouble. We have been persecuted in the destroyed city of Jerusalem, and now let's build the walls. And he tells the people that God has given him a blessing and God's hands on him for good, and that the king of Persia has now sent him with all the required licensing and backing to go and to do this. Okay, now just one little lesson I want you to know here. He first starts out quietly. And the reason why is because you got to be careful in life. A blessing comes from something that is discreet. A guy goes and shoots off his mouth and he's showing off. That's not good. Okay, it's a verse in the process, Hatsnei lechet, be modest with God. When a person goes around and is showy, so a lot of negative things can happen. It's even a very deep idea. You may have heard this concept of something called an ayin hara, an evil eye. Mm-hmm. You don't know what that means. They have a lot of, what does that mean? The guy's looking and giving me an evil eye. What is a deeper meaning? There's a lot of meanings for it, but one explanation is like this. When a person goes and flaunts everything they're doing, Let's say I have a person and they're wealthy and they go and flaunt it. And now somebody who's poor sees them and they feel bad. They say, well, I don't have these things. I don't have that. And they're showing off or whatever it is. So at that moment, there could be a judgment. Well, why does this guy deserve wealth and this guy who's in pain doesn't? And a person can bring judgment on themselves when they're flashy and they make other people feel bad about their situation. Now, again, we obviously shouldn't feel bad. We should realize that we have what we need, as I said last week. But this is very important in life. There is a blessing when something is done discreetly. And so all these people you see showing off this and that, it's not only is it wrong, but it's dangerous for the person who's doing it. Similarly, Nehemiah here does not want, there's going to be detractors, there's going to be people against him. He wants to set everything clear before he reveals what he's going to do. So he starts out discreetly, and now he tells the people, okay, we got it in order. We're going to build the walls of Jerusalem. And he was right, because the people right now, the enemies, in verse 19, chapter 2, the enemies get very angry. Okay? And they said he's going against the king's will, which he was, as we talked about last time. Okay? And Nehemiah answers them in verse 20. And this is very crucial here, and I'll explain this a little more today. We talked about it before. He says, by Omar Elokei Hashamayim, the God of heavens has made us succeed. And we are going to go now and build. And that's important because he answers them. And this is the whole thing I want you to get in terms of why I picked the book of Nehemiah to do now, because to me, it's going to be similar in some degree to the ultimate, the last redemption, because the first redemption happened miraculously, right? But with Moshe in the desert, things were miraculous. It's a higher level of God's revelation. But when you have to deal in a world where there are a lot of causal reasons why things are happening, it becomes even harder to see the source of it as God. Because I did this. I have to fight. I have this. I have to do that. And Nehemiah knows he has to make the effort because God is concealing himself in this reality, but he always knows the source of it. And that's very crucial, as I'm going to explain to you more today, the idea of what's called the internal cause and the external thing. The internal cause is what's driving is the catalyst. There are external forces, yes, you need to do certain things. And in a certain way, though, it's actually harder. I mentioned this last week, I don't want to repeat it again. Actually easier in one way to be in a world of miracles in one way. Why? Because you see clearly. When you're in a world that God is concealing himself, it becomes another test for us because I did this. So can I see how God was directing it? Is the cause of it, is the source of it? But when I did it, I did it. And therefore, that is the whole thing in life where a person starts to say, the verse says, a person will say, when you accomplish something, you say, I did it. I'm amazing. And now you lost because you got it wrong. But it's hard because you did do it. And that's going to be, and I'm going to touch back on this in the book of Nehemiah and also in this week's portion, because there is an aspect in life that you need to do. Every human being has to have ambition, has to know that they can do, and they're supposed to do. And the problem then becomes is that when I do it, I start to think, wait a minute, this is all me. I'm doing it. And at that point, I come into a lot of danger because I fall into a world of illusion. I really don't realize that that's not what's happening. How'd you get like this? It's amazing. And I've had this many times, but you have whatever source that you have, whatever God gave you as your root of who you are, is your power. In life, you got to bring that out. When I see an oak tree, I say, wow, that's amazing how it got water and it got sun and it was planted right. But the truth is that it was all contained in the seed of the oak tree from the very beginning. The person had to bring it out. So what you're going to bring out is who you are. That's true. There's an aspect of us that is our tremendous potential. We have to bring it out. But then there's a confusion, because when I bring it out, it's I made myself, and I don't realize that my connection is something much greater that I didn't give myself. I didn't make myself. The seed that was planted that I may bring out, because God wants us to do that, that's the seed of who he gave us, who we really are. So that's what we're going to see in a little bit. So that is, and I want to just repeat, because Nehemiah keeps doing this. He keeps making his physical effort. He goes to the king and says, let us go to Jerusalem. And we saw last time, it said, according to one opinion, he was speaking to God. When he said king, he wasn't referring to the king he was talking to, because he understood, I'm making my physical effort, but that's what I have to do. But that's not the deeper catalyst of everything at all. All right, good. And now he says something that I want to explain in a moment, but in the end of this verse, he says, and for you guys, these people who came to him and started complaining, you have no portion and righteousness in the memory of Jerusalem. And this kind of upsets me a little bit, because why does he go and cut them out? Maybe he should have said to them, hey, come on down, you all. It's great, be part of it. But he doesn't do that. Why not? And we need to explain that a little bit, because that's going to be really understanding in this class what we're talking about, which is a person who is a ben Noach, is a righteous amongst the nations, has a place that they want to connect to the process of the world that God's bringing out. And the Jewish people's role is to take the internal component of it. And when you become part of something, you become part of it. So whether you are the internal representation or the external representation, you're part of that. But we're going to see that there are those that will oppose being part of this with all their being. They just feel that this is not something they can get with. And therefore, it's important for you to understand the difference between you all and somebody like this who comes to the Jews, and they're not. They could actually maybe think, well, maybe they should be brought in, but they're not, because Nehemiah understands that they have a different intention. They do not want to be part of this process. And they can't be part because they're really antagonistic to us. We have to explain why Nehemiah pushes them away, why Ezra pushed them away, and what's the difference when a person is brought in and when a person is pushed away. We have to explain that, because we're here. I'm telling you all that you have an important part in the mission of the revelation of God's plan in the world. And from here, Nehemiah pushes these people off. He doesn't make any effort to bring them in. What's the difference? Why not? When do you say be part of it, and when does the person say, hey, you're not part of it? So that we're gonna have to explain in a few minutes. Okay, so we'll get to that. Hold that on the side a second. We'll get to that. Chapter 3 is a very strange chapter. And why is it strange? Because I got to explain this to you. And this is something I really want to kind of make sense to you all, because as I'm reading it myself, I'm realizing that when you're all reading it, you probably have a lot of questions about this. Because chapter 3 lists a lot of the people, the actual names of the families who built different stations of the walls of Jerusalem. Okay. It's fascinating for me. I lived in, Jerusalem for many years, and, I know the basic wall area. Shar Ashbod is still, we know where that is. That's the entrance to the Western Wall today. So certain places we know, certain things are, but the walls of Jerusalem, parts are the same, parts from Herod, there's different, but it's fascinating to see there's a wall in Jerusalem, and it goes through each family where they built it and what they built. But I want to ask you a question, and this is very important. I want you to understand this, because when you're reading it, you're saying, okay, Nehemiah is telling me the details, giving the honor to the people that did it, and there's details we learn about every single thing. So, for example, the first gate is built. It says that they built the gate of the sheep. Okay, what's the gate of the sheep? And the commentaries say that the sheep that were brought for the offerings were brought in through this gate. So there's things we learn individually, but it seems to go through a lot of detail about these things. And same thing when you learn sometime in the Torah itself. Sometimes there seems to be repetition that we have a principle. There's not one word, not one letter in the Torah that's extra. And so you're reading, just saying, why do I need to know every person? What does that help me? Okay, so I can learn lessons from the things, but what is it? What am I gaining in this chapter that I know all these particular details of what person? So I want to explain this to you, just very, very important. There are 3 areas of the written Torah called the Tanakh. Why is it called Tanakh? The first one is called Torah. That's the 5 books of the Torah. The second one is called Nevi'im. That's the prophets. Okay, the 8 books of the prophets. And then there is the Ketuvim, the writings. Okay, now what is this breakup of the 3? What is the difference of these 3 type of books? Very, very important to understand. I'm going to give you a basic understanding, and I'm going to teach you a very, very deep lesson to understand where this goes. By the way, I don't see any people. I see a lot. So if you're available, if you're taking care of something, you need to just, take your screen out. That's fine. But I'd love to see your faces. I see Sandy's face, I see David's face, I see Rod. It's good. But if anyone is able to show their faces, please feel free.
Yeah, that does help the teacher. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm like, if you're not, don't worry about it. If you are, great. So now let's understand the difference. The Torah, the 5 books of the Torah, is God speaking through Moshe. It's a dictation. It's God's words. Moshe is not there. Nothing to do. He's not there. It says God is speaking through Moshe's throat. He's dictating to Moshe what to write. Moshe is, and that's why it's fascinating, because Moshe is the one to bring the Torah. And Moshe is simultaneously the most humble of all people. That's not an accident, because when somebody's teaching you a lesson, the more you teach somebody, and the person says it over. Says, "Oh, wait a minute, that wasn't what I meant." Yeah, because you mixed in your interpretation. I heard the class, and the rabbi said that. But really? Because now you have our translations. Moshe, to be the conduit of the Torah, you cannot be there. Moshe is the humblest. It's God's word. Everything is contained in the 5 books of the Torah. I mentioned many times, this is why you have to understand every religion who agrees on one point, that the Torah is true, but it changed. It's nonsensical, because it says it can't change. This is what it says very clearly. Lo sigra, lo tosif. You can't change one word of it, because it's God's. I think God, the philosophy. Oh, God didn't realize you have to change it late. What do you mean? It's absurd. It's insanity. It just doesn't make any sense. It's incoherent. So this is God's word, and He says it can never change, because everything is in the 5 books of the Torah. Every single thing. And you have to understand something. This is what I didn't really know this. I heard this from one of my students. Told me that apparently, I think the Christians come out with new translations of the Bible all the time, or something like that. I didn't really know that, but it's very, very strange, because that means that you're kind of getting the gist of the words, because you could change it. But in the Torah, if one letter is not there, the whole Torah is not kosher. You can't like have a freestyle translation. Why not? I got the gist of it, because that's not what it is. It's God is taking the infinite and putting it into finite letters. That's not, you have to understand what the Torah is not a book. It's God taking the infinite wisdom and putting, and therefore every single letter will combine in what's called gematria, numerical values and deeper meanings, and it's endless. I gotta tell you, I just want you to understand this so you have the appreciation of what you're looking at. Just when you read the English translation, you won't understand it. But this concept you have to understand. I mean, like I'm learning things. We started a new school in Israel, learning the mystical, mystical not a bad word, the inner wisdom of Torah, a lot of the Kabbalah. You don't understand the whole Torah is the whole everything is in the first word. Like it goes on endlessly. There's entire books, volumes on the first word, flipping it around, spelling new words, new letters, combinations. So everything is there, and you can't get a translation or change it because it's not about the concept. It goes on every level of understanding. So a letter is here. This word combines to this. This word means that. It means on one level, it means at another level, it means at another level. So you're learning it on level A, and then you could read the same words on level B, and it could be it's correct on the basic level, but it's an allegorical meaning, a mystical meaning, and everything else that's contained in the books of the Torah. So the 5 books of Torah is God speaking. The prophets, there are many prophets, I told you. There were over 1 million prophets in the land of Israel. There were prophecy schools. The prophets that we have are prophets that were needed for the future. There were things that were going to teach people, exhort the people, not just for their local time, but for generations. Okay. And that was the canonization of the Torah, was the men of the Great Assembly who put the other books of the Tanakh, of the prophets, into the what's called Tanakh. They weren't talking about, oh, hey, we got a prophet, let's put it in, because there were a lot of prophets. But the prophecy that a person might have had, it was maybe for their own personal life, or for their friend's personal life, or maybe even for the entire people for one period of time, but not that's something relevant for later. So those were not included, only the prophecies that were needed. Now, the prophecy cannot add anything to the Torah. That would be heresy, it would be insanity. So what the prophets are doing is they are revealing things that are hidden in the Torah, and they're now using it to teach the people certain things that are relevant for them and the future, but it's all contained in the Torah itself. Now, the way the prophecy works is like this. I mean, more or less. I'm not saying the whole thing because I'm not a prophet, so I've never had prophecy. I don't know what it is, but God will show the vision to the prophet, and the prophet will be translate what he sees into words. Now, the words that he uses have to do with who he is as an individual. So the words are given to him from his vision, but the words are connected to his unique nature and his speech patterns. So, for example, the prophecy of Isaiah and prophecy of Ezekiel sound very different, because Ezekiel grew up in the king's court, and Ezekiel grew up in a village. So Ezekiel, vision he saw, and the words came to him as the explanation of it from God, but he's a receiver, and his receiving quality is not there like it was by Moshe. By Moses, not there. It's nothing to do with him. By the other prophets, they are receiving it, and it's transmitted through them. So their language, their level is affecting the way the word will come out. Again, it doesn't mean that they can say whatever they want to say. They don't. They have the prophecy, and it's coming through them. But the language will be different for this prophet or that prophet, that God will choose to use him as a vehicle of the receptacle for the vision and the interpretation of the vision. That's the prophets. What we're doing now is called the writings. The writings are maybe harder to understand, but the writings are very fascinating. They're done with what's called Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh means, there's no good explanation, divine inspiration. So, this Maimonides seems to say that although prophecy is not in the world, Maimonides seems to say that this divine inspiration, a person can sometimes still attain this. A sage can attain this, where they can say something. I'm not in the level of the Tanakh, obviously, but a person could say something, and he's so connected with God and his wisdom, his understanding. He says some words, and they contain in them a deeper level of connection that is beyond just the words that he uses. So the books of the writings. So when King David writes Psalms, it's not, oh, King David's a great songwriter, he's number one, and number two is Bob Dylan, and three is Paul. No, this is not, yes, Bob Dylan, Paul Simon, great songwriters, nothing to do with King David. King David's songs are an expression of the deepest level of reality that he was so connected as he wrote these Psalms. He's teaching us endless lessons that were contained in the words, because he was like a conduit, but not a receiver. He was like a conduit who understands something, expresses it, and when he expresses that, it's containing infinite times more wisdom than what the words he said, because he's connected to the source as he's saying them. Now, I'll give you an example, but there's an infinite amount of difference. But for example, I sometimes write some songs, but I'm not comparing myself. There's no way, not even close, not even up to King David's ankle. But so I write a song sometimes, and then afterward, I felt like I was somehow tuned in, and then afterwards I found that what I said was actually a statement of the sages that I hadn't seen before. I was like, wow, hey, that fits in. Now, I'm not saying that I have Ruach HaKodesh. I'm not claiming that. I don't. But just to give you the idea of some ability that a person can be tuned in and say something that has a level, and there's a level that's infinitely beyond, because he's connected, he's speaking through Ruach HaKodesh, his divine inspiration, and therefore he's connected to a world that's way beyond him. Those are the books of the writings. So the book of Daniel, the book of Ezra, Nehemiah. Ezra and Nehemiah were prophets also. Ezra is definitely a prophet. Nehemiah is a discussion. And Daniel is a discussion also. Was he a prophet, or was he divine inspiration? But these books are in the writings, the Ketuvim, because they are with divine inspiration. Now, why do I tell you all this? I was learning a couple of days ago. We were learning some Kabbalistic, very deep esoteric ideas, and a verse came from the book of Ezra and Nehemiah. And it was talking about something completely different than what the basic meaning was talking about, because that is the idea. So when you see the words explaining it on the basic level, because it is in the book of the Tanakh, it is not a history book. It is teaching you endless things. That's why I can't translate it and change it, because every single letter that's being written and every single word that's being chosen, like this thing I saw was incredible. It was these numerical values. I could never do without a calculator. And from the one word in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah, and it was a calculation that was like incredible. So I give you this introduction to understand this, because I want you to understand, when you're reading the third chapter, which seems to go through the details of this person built this person built that. Okay, there are individual levels, individual things that we're gaining, but the deeper level is this is part of the Tanakh, and it is divine words and divine letters, and everything has meanings beyond and beyond. That was the introduction I wanted to give. I want to take questions, comments on that a second before I go on, because I just gave you a lot of information. So questions, comments, thoughts, ideas on what I just said. Does that mean it was so clear or so unclear? What does that mean?
No, it's very clear. Really good. I like this. Go ahead.
Okay, very good. So that is the third chapter. I'm not going to get into the particulars because the basic level, we see, who's building what, and we know where, we know who the people are, and there are points for these things. We actually, in the book of Ezra, when he records, the names of people, because we know, like I just had it, as you know, I did I told you last week, the day I left from Israel, we did the mitzvah pidyon ben of redeeming my daughter's firstborn. So the first thing you do is you have to go to a Kohen, because what happened was when God saved the firstborn Jews and killed the firstborn Egyptians, so they were all dedicated to God. And then when the sin of the golden calf happened, so they lost their role, and the Levites took that. So we have to then, it says in the verse, we have to redeem them to go to a Kohen, because this child who was a firstborn should be sanctified to the service in the temple, and now he can't. And so you have to go and redeem him. So you have to go to a Kohen. So when we go to a Kohen, we ask the Kohen, certain people have a status of a Kohen. Some people can trace their lineage back all the way to Aaron. Imagine that. I mean, imagine you heard that there's the Kohanic gene they found. Imagine you heard that. They found that the Kohanim is a gene that they have, that they could tell, but we don't go by that. We go by the status of a person. Can he trace it back? So when my daughter and my son-in-law were looking for the Kohen, they were going to do this. What they said, okay, do you have, a genealogy you could trace yourself back to Aaron? So that's something that Ezra did. Ezra was the Kohen. He wanted to make sure during the exile that there was, who was who and what was what, because we don't want to have a situation where somebody was going to do the service in the temple. In the time of Mashiach, this would be much easier. Because time of Mashiach, after this long exile, it says when Elijah the prophet comes, he will clarify all the genealogy. So that'll be easier. But the time of the Second Temple was much harder, because time of the Second Temple was not the ultimate redemption, and we had an exile and go into a long exile. So we have, let's say, people that are in the status of a Kohen, but they can't trace it for sure. So the individual people are important to know, what gates they built, all important. But I just wanted you to understand, in the third chapter, there are deeper meanings for everything that happens. But the third chapter goes through everyone, what they built and where they built it. And the end of the third chapter, so what happens is, it says now that the enemies of the Jews, in verse 35, verse 34, I'm sorry, the enemies of the Jews started complaining. So what are these guys doing? They're going to bring offerings now to God? They're going to raise up this destroyed land? And they responded also. And then another one of the enemies said in verse 35, don't worry. Even if they're building up the walls of the city, a fox could knock it down. It's the place is destroyed already. Now, in verse 36, when Nehemiah hears this, he prays to God that God should return their scorn back on them. Okay, and they were trying to scorn; they should be punished. And in verse 38, the end of chapter 3, it says, and we built the wall, and we finished half the wall. And then the people became dedicated to continue. Now, I want to explain this a second. So, it's one thing when a person goes and complains, but the text is recording for us their scorn. Why is it so important? You have to understand this. Every person is external factors and internal factors that block us. Okay, there's a voice in your head, and sometimes there are things in the outside world that go and stop us. So there were a group of people that said, what are they doing? They're doing bad. They're doing the wrong thing. And that has an effect on a person. I was counseling somebody this morning, and like I had to clarify what they knew what they were doing was right, because the pressure from the outside, it's not pressure from inside your head, makes you doubt when you're doing the right thing. And that is an incredible danger. A danger could be from the inside, the Yetzer Hara, could be from the outside. So the first one statement is, what are they doing terrible? What are they doing? And then the second statement comes along and he says, don't worry, even if they do, it's never going to work. And that's unless you have your voice in your head also. It's not doing something. You question, am I doing the right thing? And then you say to yourself, I can't even succeed anyway. What am I? And that is not righteous. That is bad. A person's got to consider, am I doing the right thing? But when they know they're doing the right thing, then in the sense they get a voice in their head that says to them, I'll never make it. That's not good. That's not true. A person has to say to themselves, then, if I'm doing the right thing, it's up to me to make my effort, and what God wants to bring out, he'll bring out. And the text is telling us because they were trying to break the people. That's what they were trying to do. And that is when the people and then the verse says, the people, Ezra strengthened them, Nehemiah strengthened them. And he said, don't listen to them. God's going to pay them. That's their problem. Be steadfast in what you have to do. This is get clear your mission, what you need to do, and just keep that goal in front of you. And then the people's heart was strong because they knew they were doing the right thing, and they were able to push out those voices that were trying to destroy them. And that is crucial to do in life. It goes then and it goes today. And I'll explain this more in a moment, because this is what we're dealing with right now in the world. That leads us into chapter 4. Because now in chapter 4, these enemies of the Jews, they weren't just complaining, they weren't just, hey, let's say some words. They actually had a plan in chapter 4 to destroy and to kill the Jewish people. And they had a whole plan. And they had places they were going to attack. And they said, okay, we can't dissuade them. They got permission from the king. Let's go and kill them. And there was an actual plan. Now, when Nehemiah in verse 3 sees stuff is happening, he realizes these people have bad intent for the Jews, and he prays to God, and he sets people up as guards. Now they got to guard the whole city. They're trying to finish this wall, and they realize the enemies are gathering. Now, some of the people started to get some weakness. It says in verse 4, people of Yehuda started getting concerned. We succeed. The enemies of the Jews said, we're going to get in there. They won't see us. We'll kill them, and we'll just stop the work. Now, in verse 6, there were Jews who lived amongst the enemies of the Jews. People were living, Jews were, it was a very small area in Jerusalem where they were concentrated. And Jews lived amongst the nations that were around them. And what happened was the Jews who lived in nations around them understood what was going on, and they were able to hear the plans and spy on the plans of where the enemies were going to kill and attack the Jews. And they went in verse 6, and they revealed to Nehemiah and to the people what their plan was. When Nehemiah sees this in verse 7, he went and he set up people to hide, to be able to ambush them when they try to catch us. And he created a whole system where they were able to gather together and to defend against the people, to undo their plan to kill the Jews, to stop them from building the walls. Okay, in verse 9, when the people hear it, okay, the enemies realize that they've been found out. Okay, the people start to go back to the work, but now Nehemiah already says, okay, we got to be careful. He sets up a whole system where he has some people working, some people guarding. There was a period of time we had people working with one hand and guarding with the other. So until this is done, this is a hard task, because the enemies are trying to go and to kill them. And they have beaten them on the first level by being told by their brethren where they plan to attack. And now the rest of the time that they're building, they got a sword in one hand and they have a hammer in the other. Okay. Now, that's going to continue throughout chapter 4. Okay. Now, I want to use this to get back to the question I asked before. Why did Nehemiah not take these people and make them part of what he was doing? Like he said, no, you have no part in this. And the answer is because he understood who they were. He understood who they were. He understood that these people were not people who were willing and able to be part of the Jewish mission. If he would have seen in them any sense that they want to be part of God's mission in the world, and this is what we have to share. I got to share with you, because God's mission, as we said many times, it's for the entire world. As we say in the prayers in Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, everyone's going to put their one effort in to serve God, every creation in the world. God loves all his creations. God did give a mission for the Jewish people that they have to do. They have to be a catalyst, an internal catalyst. And whoever wants to connect to that is part of that mission. But there are people who say they want, but they really want the opposite. And that's what Nehemiah saw. He saw these people, yeah, we're going to kill us. I mean, I don't mean to sound paranoid, but we have it in our Haggadah. We have a verse that says, in every generation, there is someone that wants to destroy the Jewish people. Okay, so you saw Hitler, you saw the Cossacks, the freedom-loving Ukrainians. That was a political shot on the side. Okay, so the Cossacks, you saw everyone. I can go Spanish Inquisition, it's on and on and on. So we have those we know, but what we don't realize is in every generation there is somebody cooking something. So, like, what is the Iranian deal? What's that about? What was the goal? What is happening there? So you can't be fooled by the politics, because like it's fascinating to me right now. It's like the people who like I said to you many times, I've never seen a situation where the people who are the biggest Nazis call other people Nazis. You don't agree with what I said. How could you say that? You're questioning the vaccine. You're a Nazi. Like, what? It's unbelievable. It's like people cannot. So you have to really, really be careful and see right now there are people with agendas who are coming off as they are super righteous, and they're really not. Now, I can give them the benefit of the doubt. There's a place that they want something good, and they're confused. I don't mind giving them that benefit of the doubt, but I will say that as long as they don't have Torah, their priorities are messed up, and even if they do believe that they're being righteous, that's not what's going on. They have a different world order, and so what's happening is that Nehemiah saw that these people were not people who want to be part of the mission. When we talk about a nation called Amalek, I've discussed it before, who really Amalek is a mentality. It's like the Nazis who really want to destroy good. So what happens is that I've talked about once before to explain the idea, when Amalek was the original Amalek. Amalek today is what you call, I have said it before, but when you see the trait of Amalek as a guy who will hurt himself to destroy, his main goal is to destroy. So when the Nazis had a choice between using the cattle cars and the trains and the trucks to go and kill Jews, or to get supplies to the front line, they chose to kill the Jews. Why was that? Because that's a Amalek mentality. The Amalek is like, I got to fight against good. So I told this once before, I'll speak it again. Who was Amalek originally? He was a grandson, great-grandson of Isaac, right? Isaac had a son named Esav. Esav had a son named Eliphaz. Eliphaz had a son named Amalek. Eliphaz was the grandson of Isaac. He learned Torah from Isaac. The grandson of Isaac, Esav's son, told his son, Amalek, said, listen, if you want to go and you want to attain the world to come, be part of the Jewish mission. Because that's what's going to happen right now. Yes, I've described it many times. God gave 2,000 years for anyone to find God, and no one did except for Abraham. At that point, God chose Abraham and said, okay, your descendants, and whoever wants to connect to you in one way or another. So he told his son, Amalek, he said, listen, you want to attain the world to come, connect to the Jewish mission. That's going to come through my uncle, Jacob. When Amalek heard this, he said, I do not want to do that. I will not be second fiddle, and my goal is to destroy them. And so for those who have an inability, for whatever reasons, to want to be part of God's mission because it hurts their ego, it hurts their thing, whatever the rationalization is, whatever the internal mechanism that blocks them from being part of this, so they may say nice words, but as you saw in the story of Nehemiah, they're ready to kill him. They're ready to kill the Jewish people. Yeah, come on, let's be part of this. No, that's not your goal. Your goal is something else. And that's really crucial, because when we're talking about here on this group is people who say, wait a minute, I understand there's one God and he loves all his creations and he has a plan for where the world is going. And I want to be part of that plan. And it's very, very, as I said, it's very, very fair. Somebody comes and says, listen, I want to take on the 613 commandments. They could do that. Person could convert. Amazing. And that person's called a son of Abraham, a son of Sarah, daughter of Sarah. That's how we call them up to the Torah. Now, so-and-so, the son of Abraham and Sarah, because they're considered to be born from Abraham and Sarah, were the first converts, essentially, because they started the whole process that started from that, not from his father. So, and a person says, I don't want to do that too much. I want to be part. I want to do the 7 mitzvahs. I want to live a righteous life and be part of this mission. Then great. They go in now and they are the chitzoni, the expression. They become the casing that's part of the catalyst. They become part of the mission, part of the plan. That's a major, major difference. And that's why it's crucial for a person to know where they're at. These people had, in the story of Nehemiah, he saw in them, this is a lie. I got to see through the lie. And as I said to you, and I keep saying this to you, and I just see, the reason why I harp on it is because the lies are so great that, and it's a fact, it's great now, you could sort of see through them, because they're getting so exposed. But the people are digging their heels in deeper and deeper and deeper. It's just fascinating. It's like, but it's crucial for us to understand that people have agenda. It's like, climate control, climate, the climate crisis. So I want to just give you one thought about it for a second. There's no question we're damaging the world with the stuff we're doing. There's no question about that.
Right.
No question.
Human footprint,
we are damaging. So, but if somebody brings up, why is there so much autism? Why is there so much toxic? What? And that you can't ask. But you got to stick with this mission of climate control. Now, why? Why? Because I want to give you good news. Give some good news. Even if it's true that what we're doing is going to destroy the world, even if that's true, which I don't think it is. I'm not a scientist, and I've heard of, but even if it is, I have good news for you. The world as it is is a maximum of under 200 years. Don't worry, it's not going to blow up by then from the climate control. But what is going to happen is when they make your food poison and Monsanto's poisons your stuff, people getting diseases, getting autism, getting all these things, but they don't ask those questions because they don't want to ask those questions, because the poison they're doing that affects people most is not in the agenda. So what you're dealing with is a facade. Let's talk about that, so we can have, Kerry fly out in his private jet and have this discussion and create a new world order. But let's not ask the question, wait a minute, let's talk about the things we know are hurting people. But they don't ask. So what you're getting is literally, a bunch of lies. It's fascinating. One guy I like is Tucker Carlson. I think he's a smart guy. Now, again, he doesn't have, certain Torah things. What do I think about UFOs? I'll tell you what I think. I happen not to believe there is extraterrestrial life, but I would tell you this, because I don't see anything in the Torah that indicates such a thing. But the reality is, even if there was, it wouldn't make any difference. Doesn't matter. Because the way the world's structured, we know the mission of there. If there's but I don't see that. I didn't find any source of thing. But if there's another planet that had its own mission, it's irrelevant. Not going to do anything. So when a person is questioning, like someone like Tucker Carlson, so you mentioned something like UFOs once, and it may take away his credence, but it doesn't really, because the guy is questioning. He's not a person who has Torah. He's a thinking person who's saying he's in the media and realizes that the media is lying to you and directing you to what they want to say, and he's saying, you got to ask the questions. That is wonderful, and it's true. And I always harp on it because I need you to understand that the guy who looks at the good guy is very often not the good guy. That's the world we're in right now. Okay, so these guys come to Nehemiah and they want to participate, but they don't want to participate. They got a whole different religion, a whole different agenda. Okay, and the agenda, like we said many times, we want to help the downtrodden here. That's not really the agenda. The agenda is, let's break all of the boundaries of the world. In other words, there is a structure that God created. There's a male, female. There are people with different qualities. There are different structures that work in a beautiful harmony for a goal. So the modern story is we're defending the underdog. But that's not really true, because America, as it was built, was, okay, listen, you could do what you do. I'm not saying that's the right thing, but it was the best, of a secular society. It wasn't the greatest society, because the greatest society was King David and King Solomon those times. But as far as a secular society, so listen, we want to have basic morality, and we have rights to protect, and you want to do something, your own thing, do your own thing. But now it's not about that. So it's not about defending the people who are a minority. It's about an agenda. The agenda is, there are no boundaries. There is no male, female. There is no different. It's not. And that is really, in its deepest sense, a rebellion against God. That's the root of this whole leftist movement right now. It's literally a rebellion against God. If you understand communism, one of the central pieces of communism was the idea of atheism. That was central, because God is not going to dictate this person is this, this person is that. Rather, what's going to happen is that we, Big Brother, are going to realign the money. We're going to make it fair because we know what's fair. And fair always meant that the guy who made it up had the most. So the goal may look on the outside, we're defending the downtrodden, And some people might believe that, but that's not the energy of the system. The energy of the system is break the borders, break the boundaries. What's Disney? America is living in Disneyland. I could be whatever I want to be, because there's no reality. It's unbelievable. We watched the shows so much. Disney World when it was somewhat wholesome. I don't know if it's wholesome, but somewhat, but now it's turned into like there's no reality. There's nothing. That was the place of Korach. And that was the story here. That's the story we're connecting back here. What did Korach say? Korach was saying that we're all equal. It really was bringing on this philosophy that says in the Talmud says there are different kinds of people. Some people say what's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine. That's a thief, right? There's no boundaries. I have my boundaries. I take what I want to take. There's some people who say, yours is yours, mine is mine. Is that a good person? What do you think? So there's two opinions in Talmud, both true. One is that it's an average person. It's not bad. Some people say, no, it's a trait of Sodom. You don't want to help people. You do your thing, I do my thing. So both things are true. In one way, he's not a thief. He doesn't know kindness. Then there's the guy who says, mine is yours and yours is mine. And that's called a fool, an Amoritz. Now, why is that? What is he saying? Why does he think yours is mine and mine is yours? What does that mean? What's the point of that? Because he can't live within the boundaries that every person has a unique mission and unique tools and has something that is theirs. If you can't respect somebody else's boundaries, there are no boundaries. Because there's no boundaries. Yours is mine, mine is yours. Doesn't mean that I want to give you mine, but there's nothing. There's no boundaries anymore. We've taken away the world's ability to create. Every person has to have ambition. I want to I want to be something. And that's good because that's the power God gave you. It's part of you. Now I say to you, know what? I got a new communist view. I got my friend Bernie Sanders here, another mistaken Jew, who's going to go in now and tell you, listen, no, yours is mine, mine is yours. What? Why? Because there's no boundaries. So why is anyone going to do anything? Every time communism failed, because why should I do it? There is nothing of mine, nothing of yours. It's all just lost. The righteous person, it says, can say, yours is yours. I respect your boundaries. And mine is yours, meaning that I'm able to give you from mine. I'm able to expand my boundary to include you, but I respect your boundary. That's a righteous person. I always tell you, people misunderstand the idea of love. To love your neighbor like yourself in the highest dimension. There's a few dimensions, but the highest dimension is not the idea that I'm selfless, because no one's selfless. When a person has a threat to their lives, their instinct will be to save their lives, always, because God made you like that. The greatest person you can become is to expand yourself to include beyond yourself. You have a spouse, you have children, you have a community, you have a world. So you see yourself not as this little limited person, but I can give to another person because I see that I'm connected to them. So yours is yours. I don't want what's yours. That's your place. I could take mine and expand it and work it with you, because I could see myself as being beyond my limited space of I'm fighting for the little slice of pizza. There's only 8 slices. What am I going to do? No, I don't believe that. I believe that God brings into the world and it's not limited. But you look at the world, you say, there's 8 slices, there's not more. He gets 2, I'm getting less. Okay, that's not called blessing. Blessing is God can give everyone, and everyone gets what they need. Korach came along and said that there are no boundaries. We're all equal. I mentioned that last week. And what he was doing with that was breaking the boundaries of life. That's literally happening today. Today, the movement is another Korach version. Now, where's Korach? Korach says he is in a spiritual punishment world. And he screams in this world, Moshe is true, his Torah is true, and we are liars. Which means Korach is going through a spiritual punishment to realign his brain, to understand that what he was saying was not coming from a place of truth. It was coming from a place of lie. Okay, why are these people saying what they're saying? It's not because they can, because you look at every communist system. It always ends up the guy who's saying it ends up being rich and everyone else being poor because it's not honest. It's not what it's about. The quality of peace is not breaking the boundaries. It's understanding that everyone has a unique mission. Everyone is a unique person, a unique station in life. And peace, shalom, means that they can interact as one whole. The blurring of things to say, everyone should have the same is not peace. It's nothing. It's foolishness. It just breaks the boundaries and it's motivated by something else always. Because every human being has a place in them where they have something special they should want to do. Right? Everyone should have an ambition, say, I am this and I want to achieve. And once you take that away, it's got to be a different agenda because it's not you anymore. That was Korach's flaw. He didn't understand that everyone has their station and that's not, the boundaries should not be blurred. They should be interacting, that this person is this quality, you have that quality, and somehow you can combine together to go for a greater purpose and become a whole. Now, I want to share with you something I wasn't fully, I wasn't dishonest with you, but I didn't tell you something last week. And I wanted to tell you now this other part. It's a little bit inconvenient, but I really want to share it with you because I want everyone to understand what we're doing is important, but understand it as it is. I mentioned to you last week that Korach, how did he make this mistake? So one thing is he thought the Jews already reached the level of the time of Mashiach. And I quoted you a verse in the book of Jeremiah that said that in the future, everyone will know God. It'll be Mala'ar's Deis Hashem. The entire world will have knowledge of God, like the waters fill the sea. And that at that point, Korach has some validity to his claim. Because at that point, once the knowledge of God is so clear, you might not have, the stations will all change. And that's why Korach made his mistake. He said, oh, we're already there, and that wasn't true. But I want to share with you something very, very important because it has to do with Noachides very, very much. Based on that verse, the Midrash asks, it says, according to that, so if the Mashiach is going to bring bring in the time of understanding, so, and when we get to the time of understanding, everyone will understand God equally, apparently. So who is the Mashiach going to teach? And the Medrash says he'll teach the Noachites, teach the nations. And this is very, very important. And I want to share with you, in two sides. I want to strengthen your resolve, but I want you to, at the same end, I want you to understand there's a certain process. So the wisdom of the Mashiach, which would be the pinnacle of the Jewish people, he will then have to spread that out and teach that and expand that to the world. So this is what I was saying earlier. with Nehemiah, and it ties with Korah, it ties with politics, ties the whole story. There is a plan, and everyone's part of that plan. The Jewish people have to be the internal catalyst. The nations who want to be part of that are part of that. The nations who want to reject that, no matter what's going to happen, they might pretend they're the new Jews. But Nehemiah reads right through these guys and says, you guys are lying. That's not your agenda. There is a place when the world will come to clarity. And at that point, the stations of the world will change, but not in the same way that Disneyland has created it. Be a new structure of knowledge of the world. At that point, the wisdom will come out from Jerusalem and from Mashiach to everyone in the world to be part of this mission. And so therefore, it's crucial to know yourself, to know what your role is, and to choose to become part of God's plan. And with the proper humility and the proper dedication and love. And then I know Nehemiah would say to you, come join us in building of the walls of Jerusalem. Okay, questions, ideas, comments. Okay, I got an amen. Yeah. It's very good, very good.
Very well said, Rabbi. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Does anybody on YouTube or Facebook have any questions? Feel free to type them in the chat box right away.
You know, someone said amen. It's just too funny for me to see that, because like amen doesn't make sense in English, doesn't mean anything, right? In Hebrew, it's an acronym for Kel Melch Ne'eman. It's the letters Aleph Mem Nun, for God is faithful to bring out his process. And the Aleph is the mind, the Mem is the heart, and the Nun is in Hebrew, the Nun, it brings out into reality. So when you say Amen, what you're saying is that what I know and I feel to be true should be brought out in the world. I affirm that this is the truth. But the stupid people today think it's a man, a woman.
Amen.
How nuts could you possibly be? How nuts could you possibly be? At least go and say, what does it mean? You know, like say, what is, at least ask somebody who knows, what does amen mean? Don't come with these idiotic interpretations.
So now is it going to be politically incorrect to say that in
oh yeah. These people are coming from a
amen.
Everybody's yeah, right. Eight-year-old made a joke, right. She knows the joke.
Anybody have questions or comments? It's a fantastic class. 2 very good classes today. Feel very fortunate to have been able to hear these classes. Awesome. Glad you're home. Really glad to see you home. You look refreshed. I'm surprised that you may have gotten some good rest after you got back. I don't know, but you look fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You got some of that sun just
we got
in
a little
time.
sun today.
Yeah.
Got a little sun. Yeah.
Just in time for the neo-Nazis to protest in Georgia.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And but again, I have some good news. God runs the world.
Amen. And I didn't mean amen.
And it's like, as I told the congressman, and I told you the story before, but I said America's got to choose to be on the right side. You know, and that's the reality. And but it's pushing because the world is in a very bizarre place.
You guys hear
Absolutely
about
bizarre.
Did you guys hear about Russia having a rebellion attack?
No, I didn't hear. What was this?
Yeah. It came from Wagner Group, which is a paramilitary group that Russia uses to pay to fight wars all over the world. Well, they've been fighting Ukraine, and Russia attacked them, killed a bunch of them. So they turned all their equipment around and marched to Russia, was basically going to overthrow Putin. And for some reason, mysteriously, within a few hours after them getting miles ahead, they hold on, son, I'll be right with you. Shut the door. They they ended up stopping the convoy, and the leader of it went to Belarus, and he is being exiled to Belarus.
Where did you hear this?
It was all over the news this morning, all over. Just check it.
I got to check. I got to check. Thank God I haven't checked the news this morning.
Didn't you have some dealings in Russia at one time?
No,
it wasn't you. It's Wobie. Wobie had some dealings or something.
I don't know the Russia. I don't know. I don't know Trump. I don't know Russia. I don't know anything.
I know nothing.
I don't know anything. No.
Where's that?
I don't like Putin. He's terrible. No,
I know nothing.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I don't know. I tell you, the problem is I don't believe anything I hear.
Well, it's all over the news.
One guy that I was listening to is this guy, Colonel Douglas McGregor. I don't know why. I just feel that when I listen to this guy, he seems to know what he's talking about. So I'm gonna Google. I'm gonna YouTube him and see what he has to say, because a lot of this stuff is what you hear in the news is an outright lie.
Oh,
so I have no idea.
It's on international news. It's everywhere.
It's even Russia, and Putin has commented on it. But however, you are absolutely right. Anything that you read from this war could be propaganda.
Sure.
And
you don't know what's what. I'm not saying, but I'm saying everything has got a twist here.
Oh yeah.
So you gotta see what you're Putin quickly flew out of Moscow. Okay, I don't know.
The trickiest thing about it is he was on the march. He had taken the largest military southern district, occupied it in Russia, and was heading to Russia when it was stopped. And all of a sudden, Putin pardons him, and he goes to Belarus, and you can't come back here. It was like Putin's saving his hide right now.
Yeah, the question we have to figure out. I have no knowledge of it, but if you who did what? I don't know yet. I don't know. I have to read the story, but you said like Russia blew up Nord Stream. When I heard that, I was like,
no, we did that.
I was like, guys, guys, you got to think a little bit.
That was done by the Navy.
Yeah, I don't want to say. I know Trump
that?
did it. I know Trump did it, but it's like obviously they didn't do it. Why would they blow up their own stream? They could have just cut it off.
Right.
So something happened, but what's the spin on it? I don't know.
Well, there's going to be a spin.
I saw my brother. My brother is, my brother tells me, and this is an important thing for you to know. I like talking about politics with you guys because I want to translate it into what's going on in the world. My brother says to me, my brother lives in Israel. He says to me, for me, it's just entertainment. And I think that's a very healthy attitude. Why? Because he's like, listen, God runs the world. There's a plan. These people cannot do something that's not going to be what has to be. Now, it doesn't mean we're fatalists. It means we work on the internal power, and the external power is affected by it. We do what's right. We live our lives in the right way. People do the mitzvot they have to do, and there's a plan. And Putin is not running the world. Biden is certainly not running the world. There's no is, but I shouldn't say it's the president. Not nice. But I had to take a shot a little bit because it's not because I feel bad. He doesn't know what's going on, but it's just it's like people don't realize it's shocking. But the reality is that I think my brother's attitude is very good to take it like entertainment because it's a little bit deeper than that because you have to know what we're supposed to do. But most things we can't affect. Where it's important to us is to realize what stuff is there's a certain lie and lies, and you're getting a lot of propaganda. We're all getting it.
Oh yeah.
And you can't, and you got to see through it because I don't know, because Bill Gates is already talking about the next pandemic.
I don't think we're going to buy it as readily as they did last time.
Maybe not. But ladies and gentlemen, I mean, it's incredible that now you all know, because it's been proven, that the whole pandemic was funded by the NIH. It's pretty much conclusive, and it just dragged out 3 years, so no one's going crazy. But when you were locked down, and you realize that the guys who did it are still doing this gain of function research,
Right.
You're like, what is going on? So there's a manipulation, there's a propaganda. I'll look at what happened. I'm curious, but
Yeah, when you find anything,
our thing is not the politics. Our thing is truth. Our thing is truth. And what we have to do is
Right.
get to say, this guy's lying, that guy's lying. What's the truth? Nehemiah looks at them and says, "You guys, you're not the real deal." He
Right.
says no, because that's what you're playing games. This side, that side, it's not real. What is right? I do what's right. That's
Right.
all I can control.
I like that.
It says Maimonides says that a person must do what's true because it's true. And the end, the good will come.
Absolutely.
That's out of your control. What's in your control is do right because it's right. That's
Right.
in our control.
That's it.
That's what we must do.
Rabbi, is that a good spot I can end?
That's a good spot we can roll
the
out.
live broadcast. Okay.
Yep.
Folks, that's going to be our Working Together series. Thank you so much, Rabbi Ingber, for all your sharing. We're glad to have you back in the United States. I was going to ask Rod, I'd heard that there was rumors that there were articles of impeachment brought against Biden down there. Is that true, or is that?
Don't know anything about that.
I thought it was brought up in the House last week.
It may have, but I've been in the dark too.
Yeah, it is. They're two people are bringing it, but it's not going to go anyplace.
Nah.
Two people are bringing it. Yes, there is. It's being brought, but again, it depends on. In America, if you listen to two different, I sometimes do it just to see, and it's worthwhile to do it. Listen to this news station, and then listen to another one, and you'll see you're living in two different countries.
Oh yeah,
Right.
and if
Would
you ask,
would that put Kamala Harris or what's her name? Would that put her in as president?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons nobody wants to impeach her.
Oh Lord,
From the frying pan to the fire, right?
It's okay. Just always tell yourself.
On that
Hashem's in control.
on that
That's right.
horrible thought before the
clear way
first.
to see it. There's no clear way to see it. You look at what's going on. You're saying these guys certainly aren't running.
God has given us the great cosmic apocalyptic sitcom to enjoy before Mashiach. So just have Emunah and live. I like that.
Rod, that's a good way to end it. I think I'm going to sign out for
Okay.
our
Take
Working
care,
Together
everybody.
series. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We wish you all a wonderful, wonderful week.
Shalom.
All the best. Bye-bye. All right.